Hey all, it's Coach Kia here. I'm an online fitness and nutrition coach with over 24 years of experience in healthcare and currently on duty. Waiting for that next call. Anyways, and so I thought I'd do a quick video over hypertrophy. Everybody talks about muscle, everybody talks about getting swole, and I thought it would be great to do a quick informative video and show the different types. Yeah, that's right. There's actually different types of hypertrophy. And I just wanted to do a quick little summary of that just so we can differentiate the two to clear up some of the confusion out there. And so when it comes to hypertrophy or the building of muscle is you actually have two different types. You have one that's called myofibrillar hypertrophy. We'll put a 1 here. And the other one we have what's called sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Now the big difference between the two, if I can get this put up, is with myofibrillar hypertrophy, that's the adding of these fibrils, or the myo meaning muscle and fibrils meaning fibers. So the adding, strengthening, thickening of these fibers, and then through time, you start adding fibers, they start getting thicker. It's like that muscle becomes more dense, or hypertrophy. It starts adding of actual muscle tissue. And then that other style or type of hypertrophy we talked about is sarcoplasmic. And I want you to think of that as like plasma, okay? That's the increase of the volume of that cellular fluid, or where the cell holds fluid. And by doing that, adding extra adage of fluid, that's actually when you have extra metabolites, that's the swelling of the fluid around the inside of that, and also just the increase of volume. Okay, so you got those two types. You have myofibrillar, which is the adage of fibers, and then you got that sarcoplasmic, which is the adding of that interstitial fluid, the cytoplasmic fluid within the cell. Okay, so now that we know that, I thought it'd be also great to highlight the factors, the key factors that contribute to this fantastic phrase of hypertrophy that we're talking about. There we go. If I just zoom back a little bit, and here we go. We'll talk about it. To be able to produce these results, mechanical tension is going to be one of the main drivers there. I want you to think of mechanical tension as a machine that's causing tension. That's the actual movement of the weight. When you're exercising and working out, that's what you're doing. Essentially, is you're creating what's called mechanical tension on that. And the whole idea of going and hitting the gym hard is you're trying to create what's called muscle damage, or creating small micro tears, okay, in that cell. And by having these tears here, when it rebuilds, it comes back thicker, stronger, or even produces more of those fibers. That's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to create muscle damage. Metabolic stress, that's going to be, if you're looking at this style of hypertrophy here, that's what you're causing the muscle. And a way to do that, and a way to think of that, is when you're going higher reps, when you have more TUT, or time under tension, what it does is that increases one of these metabolites here called lactate. And by doing that, when you have increased levels of lactate here, that signals the bodies to release growth hormone. That's here, growth hormone, which is something that's going to create more growth, okay, more hypertrophy. I thought I'd cover that really quick. And other factors that go along with these key components of hypertrophy is you have other ways that you can increase your mechanical tension, muscle damage, metabolic stress, okay? And those 4 things are volume. I touched on that here just a little bit ago. By increasing your volume and having the correct amounts of volume, you're going to be able to achieve the hypertrophy. When it comes to volume and you doing the actual workouts, like my little drawings here, is you want to increase the intensity over time. And a good way to think about that is think of your 1 rep max, 1 rep max, okay? And for example, if your 1 rep max is 100 pounds, you want to be between 60 and 80% of your 1 rep max. And we're talking about increasing that intensity. And if you're in range there, so that example would be 60 to 80 pounds is what you're trying to do with the resistance that you're using there. So you don't, if you can only get 1 of those, then you want to scale down to this percentage and increase that intensity through time. And my next example here, you want to concentrate on your PO, or your progressive overload. If your 1 rep max is 100 and you're following this principle here where you're increasing your intensity, sticking to 60-80% of your 1 rep max, eventually you're going to run into what we call adaptation. That's your body starts responding to the stimulus that you're giving it here, and you can move up. And with progressive overload, that's simply stating, wow, can't talk. That's simply stating that, okay, you're doing this for a couple weeks. Then the next time when you progressively overload, that is instead of starting at 100, say it's the next week, you start at 105. Then that following week, is 110. And see how through time, you're progressively overloading that muscle. You're keeping the volume up, your intensity's up. And you can see how through time here, if you follow this process, a couple months or 12 months of training, next time your 1 rep max might be 200 or up, depending on how well you're hitting that. Last one here is frequency. Theoretically, you could go hit chest every day, but you wouldn't be giving your muscle adequate time to rest, recover, and repair that cell damage that you're creating here with that muscle damage to compensate, to come back together. Not only that, but to overcompensate. The adage where we talked about myofibrillar hypertrophy is you want these to get thicker, stronger, but also the adding of fiber through time. Frequency, you could theoretically hit it every day, but if you're staying within the correct frequency with progressive overload, all right, and increasing your intensity and keeping that volume, following mechanical tension damage and increasing that metabolic stress, that's where you're gonna see the main drivers of hypertrophy. I thought that would be good for one, you to see my chicken scratch, but also just explain a little bit some of the nuances when we're talking about hypertrophy. You have those two types. You have that myofibrillar, and then you have that sarcoplasmic, or the increase of the cellular fluid. Hope you found that helpful. If you did, subscribe, comment, share for more. Looking to roll out more of these where we just point out some of those key nuance differences. And I think knowledge is power. By knowing that, you can make the adjustments when it comes to your programming. Again, I'm Kia Tuwala. I'm an online fitness and nutrition coach with over 24 years of medical field experience, currently as a frontline paramedic and firefighter, finishing up my exercise here for the day where I'm using all these principles to do a really decent shoulder workout, but I felt inspired to share a little bit of this with you today. Go ahead, subscribe, like for more, and if you want more or other topics, be sure to leave that down in the comments. Remember, when you are doing this implementing program, that it's about progress, not perfection. Coach Kia signing off.